Anger plays an important role in our human emotional experience. Let's explore anger and learn more about what it actually is as an evolutionary signal. So much of what has happened on our beloved planet has been a desecration of the soul's power. This experience is universal for humanity, while we are living in a third-dimensional reality construct. Disempowerment plays out for both polarities within all cultures, societies, ethnicities, within all levels and personal abilities, and within all economic survival and competition programs. It's everywhere in a third-dimensional reality construct. And we've played with the concept of disempowerment in so many forms and so many lifetimes. And we've played both with being the one to have and abuse the power, and also being the one to feel the other side as the disempowered victim. Today we're working in the wounded feminine space. And so we recognize that, of course, disempowerment and invalidation programming is deeply etched into the feminine collective psyche. Disempowerment causes a severe separation of the soul from its natural empowered nature. This causes schisms or fragmentations inside of the mind. As the soul is fragmented and silenced, the egoic mind becomes the primary means for us to navigate and survive in a world that seems to want to eat us alive, as its messages and experiences of unworthiness that are all around us and its false power structures can make us wince with a sense of helplessness. To cope with this experience, the protective mind becomes primary, and when it's in a state of disempowerment, this is where the victim lives inside of us. This part of us can only see from that fearful, reactive perspective because it appears we have no control around what's happening to us. The emotional result of a disempowerment of any kind is anger. As a feminine energy in this world, we have been forced historically and even today to eat our anger. It was not allowed within the expectations for feminine norms or conformity. In rare cases where the feminine rage had a space to expose itself without retribution or punishment, it meant pain and emotional chaos for those who surrounded her. We have cultural stereotypes that remind us of this type of destructive feminine rage, such as the taming of the shrew, or phrases like hell hath no fury like a woman scorned. This is the toxic face of feminine rage that becomes the feminine tyranny. But today we're exploring our anger from a space of awareness and consciousness, and with a goal towards understanding its place in our healing and evolution as we move into a true divine feminine frequency. Anger is a powerful emotion, and it is a response of empowerment. It's a move away from the freeze trauma response or apathy, or from people-pleasing and appeasement responses. Anger is like a step up the ladder of empowerment, but we don't want to stay stuck on that step as our regular locale. Anger can be used constructively as destruction or exposure of what's false or unjust, or it can in itself be an abuse of power over another. Here, we're exploring the difference to gain a little more awareness about this powerful emotional response that is very much a part of our human evolutionary process. From a 3D survival or physical body evolutionary perspective, anger is the fight survival response. And it was intended as a short-term response to threat, as a defensive mechanism. It's a form of protective response, whether that's self-protection to establish a boundary or protection of others that are not able to self-protect. This is the role of a guardian, a soldier, or a warrior archetype to protect others. In the feminine space, it has been called the mama bear response, to protect the child. But when it's misunderstood and the use of anger is largely as a reactive, unconscious response, it becomes a poison in our lives. So we want to really take a moment to explore our anger and the flavor of the anger that we experience. In the feminine experience, the rise of our anger can actually be born from a place of deep healing. It can be a rising up of the soul to reclaim its inherent power. It can be a critical part of our experience as we regain our footing and remember who we truly are in our powerful self as a sovereign. It's a stepping away from a disempowered pattern of submission. It's a stepping up the healing ladder from apathy or appeasement and pleasing. In that sense, anger is a healthy response, and it shouldn't be feared. This kind of anger is empowerment, and it's needed to form a healthy sense of self as independent and autonomous from others. It can be a healthy boundary setting tool, and it can be a reclamation of inner self-worth and dignity. A different form or flavor of anger I'll call avoidant deflective anger. If this form of anger remains our go-to response to life, then we can become a destructive, toxic force. This is destructive feminine rage as the feminine tyranny. I'm distinguishing between anger as avoidant defensiveness and anger as a statement of actual reclamation of power or boundary setting, because they're really different forms of anger. There's times for sacred rage, which is a reclaiming of power or uncovering illusions to destroy what is falsely imprisoning. But when the anger and rage are deceptively defensive, to avoid something being seen or to avoid someone being given access to their power, there's a different thing happening. Anger as a defensive bullying response says we're hiding parts of ourselves and don't like it when another calls those parts out, so they have to be examined. This type of anger postures and deflects and distracts. It's a manipulation to force the other person to back down or to give up. Anger as a fear-creating deflection of truth is a covering over of the potential for inner reflection and self-awareness. It's a form of subterfuge and manipulation to scare others away from seeing us truly and fully. It's a response that's revealing a really deep lack of self-acceptance. When we believe in our own unworthiness, or we don't believe we're lovable, or we don't tolerate our own imperfections or places of vulnerability, if we're self-judging or holding shame, then defensive avoidant anger will be our response when anyone pushes against this inner shadow. We may have ancestral masculine tendencies towards this form of abusive anger that seeks to force and frighten the other into a sort of fearful or weakened submission. In the wild, we see this when animals make charge displays to make other threats back away or retreat. Often they're trying to appear larger and more powerful than they actually are. They're attempting to hide their weakness. This form of anger as an unhealthy human response is the ultimate fear of intimacy, and all intimacy must begin within, as intimacy means to be seen. So when we lack inner comfort with who we are, we may try to hide this discomfort within our shadow self by using a defensive, explosive, or deflective form of anger. When we're clear and confident in our self-identity, our values, and our actions, allowing for our own mistakes, and we're not ashamed of parts of ourselves, then we'll not find the response of defensive, avoidant anger so readily flowing. Self-acceptance, the release of shame, and real true self-love as a self-knowing can tame the beast of defensiveness. When we self-accept, we feel powerful, safe, and secure in our own being. Learning to use and explore our anger is an important part of growing into a mature relational being. Our wounded inner child can be traumatized when they are revealed reluctantly and suddenly, and defensive anger most often is the child mind reacting as a protective rejection or a deflection response. A display of aggressive emotion and physical posturing to deflect attention in a different direction or to get our own way by establishing a camouflage to protect or hide a perceived inner weakness. If this is our go-to response and we use this deflective anger often, it will destroy our relationships and it will perpetually push others away. It creates a lack of safety in any relationship. Inside, what we really fear is being abandoned. We fear being rejected, neglected, or being judged. And our protective strategy will result in defensiveness as anger. The mirror outside is revealing that whatever is rejecting or judging us is the appearance of our own inner disapproval or shame in the outer world appearing back to us. Defensiveness is a form of subterfuge. It's distraction, it's cover-up. It's not an empowerment. It's more a form of bullying to hide behind the shield of aggression and threat and push away what we don't want to see or let in because it feels threatening. It certainly has its place in the natural animal instinctive realm, but it's not a healthy response to human relating. It really seeks to disempower and confuse the other as a form of hiding itself from ultimate exposure. That's subterfuge. It's unconscious and it's an instinctual threat response. And it really doesn't have a place as a regular habitual response when it comes to human connection, intimacy, and relationship. Learning to explore defensive, avoidant anger with consciousness is a powerful tool of self-discovery. So be curious about what makes you angry and really go deep inside to find out why. Is it a self-empowerment response? And if it is, that could be a very healthy evolutionary healing response. Or is it a defensive act of subterfuge? Are you reclaiming your authentic power, or are you defensively deflecting to cover a part of yourself up? What part of you are you denying, rejecting, neglecting, judging, and hiding? Defensive anger often reveals this lost and fragmented part that can be reclaimed and loved back into wholeness. It's a great opportunity to become whole when we use it productively as information instead of destructively and unconsciously to create chaos and disconnection.